Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Great to see all of you showing up here. We'll take a few minutes to settle in. I know we have about 70 folks registered for this session. I know some people will watch the recording after the fact, but we'll, I'm sure, see a few more folks trickling in. I'll share a few words of introduction and then we'll dive in with our guest speakers tonight. Um, we are joined by two incredible folks with so much wisdom to share on the topic of sharing land and living and working in community and building resilience. Alexis Yamashita is here. Hi, Alexis. We're excited to hear from you. Alexis is also a brand new appointee to the NOFA Vermont board, and we're so excited to have her. And Ira Wallace is joining us. Hi, Ira. We're so excited to get this little preview and connection with you because we will be welcoming you here to Vermont next month to join us as the keynote speaker for our winter conference. And we're so excited to learn from you both tonight and sort of a little more broadly when we get to February. I am going to welcome you all as we settle in to share in the chat a word or an emoji or two with a little bit of a description about how you're showing up tonight. How are you feeling? How are you doing in your we're living in challenging times, and I just want to acknowledge that we're all showing up in different ways, maybe in your joy, in your grief, your celebration, your anger, your sadness, your love, your motivation, your passion. We're welcoming you here as you are and would love to know how you're all doing. Thank you, Anya. Hopeful. These conversations for me that we've been hosting since May have really been an anchor. I was talking with Alexis before folks trickled in here. It's just such a gift to be able to explore the many ways that creative people are working together and building pathways and systems that are collective and rooted in care and love for each other and the land. And each of the examples of projects that we've explored in this series just brings me so much hope. So thanks for sharing that, Anya. Just curious and ready for inspiration to learn. This series is all about learning, definitely. Rachel, small seed company packaging seeds over here, trying to keep the hope going in spreading seeds while taking in this beautiful webinar with my dad and a family friend. Beautiful, Rachel. So much community in that little chat box response. Lavender, welcome. Showing up with courage and resilience while being present to grief with grief. I too want to learn. Yes, courage and resilience and grief all come together. We have to be practiced at all of them. And I'm so grateful for all of you showing up to learn together tonight. One of this goals with this series is to connect with a community of people who are thinking about this topic. So as we meet tonight, we do welcome you to take care of your needs while you participate with your videos on or off, whatever makes sense for you. And we encourage you to participate as actively as you can. But we also recognize this is a time of day that is filled with a lot of responsibility. So welcome as you are. I will engage you to participate in the chat multiple times throughout the night. And you're also always welcome to come off mute and share with us as we move forward here. And if you're still reflecting and writing in the chat about how you're showing up, please continue to let those reflections come in. I just want to briefly share on the screen here our community agreements. They were sent out when you registered for the series. And again, invite you to bring your experience to these conversations. We'll have a presentation and storytelling from Alexis and Ira, and then we'll have a really nice amount of time is my goal for us to have Q&A and a rich discussion. I want to note also just a couple of housekeeping things about Zoom. The main one is that closed captions are available for this webinar. There's a little CC button at the bottom of your screen. And if you have any other needs or accessibility needs, please feel free to message me and we'll do our best to accommodate them. I'm seeing Grace writing in here, coping, listening while making dinner, eager to connect with the community of practice for cooperation, Vermont, CLT. Hi, Grace. Nice to hear from you. Glad to have you making dinner and here at the same time. Um, my name's Megan Browning. I work on the Farmer Services team at NOFA, Vermont. Mia Smith is also here. I'm pointing to her screen, joining us from NOFA. It's an honor and a privilege to facilitate these conversations. I just want to name that I'm not an expert on these topics, but really I'm just here to hold a space for learning for all of us to come together and learn about these incredibly important topics tonight. Jeff also writing from SK, looking for ideas for a quarter section I steward. Grateful for the opportunity to learn and connect. Thank you, Jeff. Great to have you here. I want to just continue our connection and alignment here with another chat box prompt to just zero us in a little bit more on the topic of tonight. If folks are willing, I think we've had a little bit of this response come out in your responses to the first prompt, but just to think about this sentence, complete this sentence, something I'm curious about that brought me to this webinar is, and fill in what you're thinking about. I'll paste this in the chat. We've had a variety of projects presented in this series. Some of you I know are here having been to other webinars in this series. Others of you are showing up for the first time. And I would love to just hear what's on your mind as you show up for this specific conversation tonight. What are you curious about? This will help us get a sense of who's here and also help Alexis and Ira to sort of get a sense of what you're thinking about as you show up. Rachel, curious about how to share land use and responsibility outside of the private ownership model, collective collaboration and power sharing. I think you're in for a treat, Rachel. That is just exactly what we're going to dive into. Anya, curious about what starting an intentional community can look like. Oh, thank you so much for your pronunciation, Rochelle. Thank you for correcting me. I'll let others fill in your curiosities. Really, I'm showing up here very curious to learn from all of you. And I want to just keep us moving forward here with the acknowledgement of how many people are out there curious about this topic. We had in this series now includes 9 sessions. This is our 7th session, and we've had over 400 individual people register for some combination of the sessions. These folks hold a variety of different roles, farmers, technical service providers, teachers, lawyers, government workers, and so much more. And I'm just grateful that you all chose to spend your time with us. We are working on building power at NOFA, and together we are very powerful. And learning together is such a big part of that. Rev and Andrea, ditto what Rochelle said, and how to build the community with others, bringing diverse resources. Jeff is curious about how to provide equitable access to land for food growing, living, medicine gathering, and ceremony. And Joss, specific considerations for structures that center diverse communities. Lavender, looking for land grant info and how I, as a land steward, can utilize this resource, also seeking answers to what others have mentioned. Beautiful. Thanks, y'all, for sharing, and really do keep them coming. We'll have, we just want to make sure we get to what you're all here for, and I'm excited that I'm seeing some alignment in the chat with what I know we're in store for with these speakers. So Before we dive in, our custom here with these webinars is to take a moment to honor those who've come before us, those who've paved the way, who needs credit, who are we calling in, who inspires us in this work. I'm going to share here a list of all the names that have come forward in these sessions, in the first 6 sessions. This is a combination of personal ancestors for participants and also more publicly known figures in this movement. Please feel free to share a name or an inspiration or an ancestor or someone who you'd like to honor here tonight in the chat, and I will continue to add to this list as we move forward in this series. While you put your names in the chat, I do want to specifically lift up and honor the Indigenous peoples, original stewards of all the land we speak of in this series, and also honor the roots of the cooperative movement in the Black community who built cooperatives as a way to meet everyone's needs when they were being systematically denied. We are working hard together to build a future that cares for us all and one in which we are all fed, and we believe it is possible. And we stand on this legacy of deep, deep wisdom that guides us in this work. So I'm grateful to all that have paved the way. Rochelle is thinking and honoring their dad, Jim Ternier, and Vandana Shiva, beautiful. Rev, I'm seeing Ace Cooperative. Thanks for sharing that. Jeff is sharing Lee Baker, my late father, who inspired my love for the land. Gorgeous. Thank you for these names. Keep them coming again. I'll add them to our sort of living record. Sarah Collins, Miss Major, Kenneth Simmons Sr. Thank you, thank you. Michelle, I'm also seeing a contribution from you in the chat with your curiosity about intentional community living styles, curious about sharing a business with friends and how to balance time for oneself with community responsibilities. All right, y'all. Lastly, before we dive in with Alexis and Ira, I just want to briefly share that NOFA Vermont, which I gave a sort of more thorough introduction to NOFA when we had our first session of this series. It is recorded, so you're welcome to visit that anytime. I'm going to keep it brief tonight so we can get into the meat of our time together. But I did want to just share that NOFA Vermont is a membership organization, and we really encourage you to join us. Membership starts at just $1, and we want you involved in this work and in this movement for the long haul with us. So please visit nofavermont.org/join, and we look forward to keeping in touch. So as I mentioned, we have been running this series for 7 months. We've learned from so many incredible leaders and farmers and producers and land stewards. And all of these conversations are recorded and available to watch on the NOFA Vermont YouTube channel. We're also keeping a running list of resources that I will send out following this webinar. I know that Alexis and Ira will have some resources to add to that list. And we are also looking to all of you in these sessions to share any resources that you know about that you'd like to put out there for this community of curious creators and collaborators. Coming up next month, just looking ahead, I will say this again at the end, but just briefly, we are going to take a pause in this series because we have our big annual event, the NOFA Vermont Winter Conference. We're going to drag Ira all the way up here to cold, cold Vermont to share even more with us. Hopefully, Ira, you can bring us some of the sunshine. And so I just want to encourage you all on this call today to, if you're in Vermont or you can travel to Vermont, to join us. We can drop the link in the chat here for registration. That's on February 14th and 15th. There will be a ton of a broad range of conversations happening, workshops, and there will be some about alternative land access models. So we encourage you to join us. And then we'll resume in March and April with 2 really exciting projects, one in New York and one in Minnesota. So make sure to register for those as well if you're excited about this topic. And now, I'd love to pass the mic to Ira Wallace and Alexis Yamashita, who've joined us here tonight to introduce yourselves, tell us some stories of your collective work and experience with intentional communities. I know that we're In for a treat. Thank you both.
Thank you. If it's okay, Megan, I
Yes.
think I will start sharing the slides too.
Absolutely. I will stop my share.
Okay, let's see. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Great. Well,
Yes, it looks great.
thank you, everyone. It's honored to be here. So as Megan mentioned, we'll be talking about intentional communities, and we'll also be talking about some other related cooperatives too, as well. But first, just as a see. Oh, there we go. Just to introduce ourselves, I'll let Ira take it away.
I'm an old-time commune lady starting in an intentional community, and the picture uh, there in black and white is my daughter uh, back in the 80s, and we were living in Ontario in a little town called Enterprise, uh, and had a small cooperative community, making a living selling crafts made out of recycled tin cans. How you could be there. And we were able to buy this farm because parents of uh, the founding members uh, lent us some money, and we spent the first summer living on nothing and saving money to start our first building. Uh, I never would have thought I'd be living in Virginia with a seed company and a cohort of friends, and that uh, this group would be working toward being a majority Black and Brown community. Um, yeah, I learned a lot from other communities by serving on the boards. Alexis is following in my footsteps. As soon as she gets out of the commune, she gets into the boardroom. uh,
Yes.
but uh, that is really what drew me to the community is an opportunity to serve and to learn. Uh, and when I left college, I thought I'm never going to write anything that's longer than one page. And I fell so in love with uh, gardening and wanting to share what I was finally putting into practice to feed a community uh, that I ended up writing 6 books on gardening in the Southeast. And now I work not just with Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, but with the emerging Ujama Cooperative Seed Alliance, educating and bringing, giving retiring teachers and emerging young farmers the opportunity to work together to build something where culturally relevant seeds are at the center. Because I didn't know enough before I ran into that initiative to realize that heirlooms didn't really have to come from Europe or China to be relevant. They could have been saved and developed in the Americas. There have been hundreds of years that Black people had been taken and brought to the Americas to form agricultural needs that were not known by the Europeans. So anyway, we'll tell you a little scoop of some of the co-op stuff that's going on now. Take it away, Alexis.
Thanks, Ira. And I'll just do a quick introduction, a little bit about me. So currently I am in Vermont as a food system PhD student at the University of Vermont. I am also, along with Ira, been involved with Jama Cooperative Farming Alliance as a founding member, and we'll talk a little bit about that later in our presentation. And just to kind of give a flavor of what my life and work looked like at when I was at Twin Oaks Community. I was a former Seed Racks co-manager of Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. And some of the other work I did at Twin Oaks during my time there was as a community planner, a member of the Economic Advisory Committee. Their process team also did community meeting facilitation, was a part of their racial equity team, dinner cook, and a community conference organizer. And just to kind of give a brief overview of the journey we'll be on today, the first part of our presentation, we're going to be a little bit more information heavy just to kind of set the stage for what is an intentional community and to get to know Acorn and Twin Oaks community a bit. Then we're going to modulate more into the storytelling part and talking about social challenges and recent changes out in the communities, and also talking about cooperative seed companies, community collaboration, BIPOC cooperatives, and intentional communities. And last but not least, talking a little bit about heirs property because, a lot of these, even if they're not directly related to the inner workings of Twin Oaks and Acorn, they are very much a part, of a world of intentional communities and cooperatives, and there's deep relationships there. And then we'll share some resources and then wrap up and hopefully leave a plentiful amount of time for questions and answers and discussions at the end. So without further ado, Ira, I'll let you take it away and talking about what is an intentional community.
Yes. And it took a while to whittle that definition down because when I first got introduced to it, it was to community. Many people were saying, don't do that. It's a cult. They're going to take you and take your freedom and money away from you. But I had the choice of homesteading or community. And when I realized that you could use community to be a homesteader, and if you wish to do it more privately, you could leave and start on your own, or you could help your community become a much more rounded sharing event. And we come from this tradition of secular communities. There are many very good religious communities that people might be more familiar with, like the Shakers. We take, they were the first people to introduce packet seeds to the United States. And hey, we're still selling packet seeds to farmers now. And there are organizations, some that are more recent and some that have been around for a while, including the Foundation for Intentional Communities, which back when it started, when I first ran into it, was a fellowship for intentional communities, but that had been started way back in the 40s and encouraged people, just like a couple of the people in the chat who had land that they were wanting to be able to continue to be available to people who are going to use it to feed their communities, to feed their families, and to experiment with living in a more just an equal way on the land. And nowadays, we see more communities as eco-villages and co-housing communities that allow people to save land or have enough land to grow food for their own families while they continue their careers. And often they're cooperative businesses in the city as well as in the countryside. And this picture is at Twin Oaks, and that stairway is a reminder of days gone by when Twin Oaks made most of its livings from making rope hammocks. Times have changed with nature intervening and losing the hammocks business, but we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about transitions and changes. Alexis.
Thank you, Ira. And a little bit more about the communities, Acorn and Twin Oaks community. So I was a member at Twin Oaks community. Also, Ira was a member too at Twin Oaks community. And just a little bit about it. It was founded in 1967, and it is the oldest egalitarian income sharing intentional community in the US. Um, so I'll let Ira talk a bit about Acorn, but just to highlight some commonalities is Acorn and Twin Oaks are both egalitarian income sharing intentional communities, but their governance and labor structures are quite different. And very much over the years, neither community is static, and their systems and structures within the community have modulated very much due to changing priorities and changing social dynamics. One interesting thing to see about the Louisa County, Virginia area, where both Acorn and Twin Oaks are, is that there are a number of other communities out there, and we just wanted to give a mention to some of them, including Living Energy Farm, Little Flower Catholic Worker Farm, Community of Peace, and the Magnolia Collective. Yeah, so Ira, could I turn it over to you to talk a little bit about Acorn?
Uh, Acorn was the result of a time of change at Twin Oaks. I was a member of Twin Oaks, and at that time, it was a 2-year wait to be able to move to the community if you wanted. And the community had prevailed in a tax case with the IRS, who said that because we weren't religious, we couldn't have this tax status and we were going to owe a lot of back taxes. Well, we got a lawyer and prevailed in that you could have shared ideology and values as long as you had a common treasury and a common business that was the majority of support for your community. And in that time of saving money for possibly being forced to pay taxes in a different bracket, we were able to save, well, Twin Oaks was able to save enough money to do quite a building spree. And at that time, it meant that there was no place in the intentional secular version of community where we are for people to join. So we put out a call to the people who had been contacting us and ex-members and made a proposal to our community. And it certainly points out that perseverance furthers because Twin Oaks, when we proposed doing this, said that's a good idea, but there are a few problems. Only 40 of them listed here on this paper that have to be overcome before we can do this. So while we were working uh, to deal with these problems and how we were going to pay back the money that we lent, uh, a group of people formed. We started having communities conferences, which had happened in the early 70s, but hadn't happened for 10 years, and brought together enough people that when Tono said, yes, we'll lend the money, we had land found. And we had also drawn in people who had building skills to share. Uh, and we started what became Acorn Community on mutual aid and high dreams. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and in that early days, we subcontracted and made hammocks for Twin Oaks. We revived our recycled tin can craft from the time that I had spent in Canada. Uh, and um, people began telecommuting. Uh, and we were able to build two houses as a house and a home, what became the home for Southern Exposure Seeds in less than 3 years. It was an exciting and amazing time in 1993 to and then in 1999 they say we didn't have the seed company, but the seed company fell into our laps and we felt like we could take on the stewardship. So the founder took a teeny little seed company and made it into a less teeny little seed company. Uh, and the generosity in that we saw in the local intentional community in Virginia area, and we saw also in the seed world where people were willing to share all kinds of uh, nitty-gritty details about how to run a business, how to keep track of the sessions. Uh, it was an exciting time. And we're still here. Alexis.
That's I think a great segue. And just to like elaborate a little bit more about the egalitarian community structure and just kind of some of the common characteristics. So as I was mentioning, there is something called the Federation of Egalitarian Communities that Twin Oaks and Acorn are members of. And for lack of a better way, it's like a federation or coalition of the egalitarian communities that are in the United States. Some common characteristics of again, the egalitarian intentional community structure, which again, this is one of many different structures of intentional communities that exist globally. But we hold land and labor resources in common. When you live at one of the communities, the community provides for the needs of its members, including housing and medical care. Uh, Another big thing that is a part of the structure is that egalitarian communities use collective decision-making processes that give every member equal opportunity to participate in decisions within the community. And last but not least, very much there is a commitment to sustainable living and environmental conversation, as Ira was talking about with resource exchange and even collaboration amongst the various communities that are out in Louisa. So, just really quickly too, of what Ira was mentioning, which I think is an interesting part of many of the egalitarian communities is the tax status. They most egalitarian communities are under the 501(d) tax status. So I know a lot of folks are familiar with 501(c)(3)s and nonprofits. This is in a related tax status that is, but its own separate entity. And as I was mentioning, one of the interesting things is this tax status is also shared with religious or apostolic organizations. And one really cool thing you know, think when I was getting to know Twin Oaks is to find out that Twin Oaks community in the court case I was mentioning did help set precedents for the tax code that really supports, the resource structure of Twin Oaks and egalitarian communities, and that the it really through the court case it established a criteria of what is a common treasury. And that includes, as I was mentioning, that the majority of the income is generated by community operated businesses, but also income generated by the community is put into a common fund that is maintained by the communities. And all members must have equal undivided interest in the common fund. So, one thing I found very interesting getting to know how egalitarian intentional communities operate is that not only within their internal structures, but also, and definitely that is the main driver. But outside, being a 501(d) organization, we are, responsible for being compliant to the tax code that does resonate with some of the values that are held internally in the community. And I'm curious, Ira, just before we move on to talk a little bit more about community labor, is there anything else that comes to mind talking about 501(d) status and the egalitarian communities?
Well, the egalitarian communities in the 501(d) status, and Twin Oaks actually also had a 501(c)(3) in earlier days, and that allowed a small and emerging community to give a good amount of labor and some money to building the movement. So in the early years, Twin Oaks had Communities Magazine housed at Twin Oaks, and one of the founding members of Twin Oaks, Kat Kincaid, did a lot of writing about the experiment that was happening at Twin Oaks, and that really inspired other people to try experiments in, cooperative living, and some not as all out as we are. Like there's a nearby community, Shannon Farm, that where people bought a bigger piece of land. Uh, I mean, Twin Oaks has 500 acres, so that's not small. But it was purchased as several pieces of land over a period of time, whereas the people at Shannon Farm had worked and saved money, and they put it together and put the land in the land trust, and allowed co-op groups as well as individuals to become members of the community. And the that 501D status didn't suit having didn't suit having so many people doing individual uh projects, but it was another way that people who get interested in sharing could share and could uh, make some of their money available to other members in the community. Shannon Farm, yes.
And to talk a little bit more about what community labor looks like at Twin Oaks and Acorn, all community members do have a weekly labor quota that covers both business and domestic work. So that is, one thing that's radically different inside of the intentional communities is that domestic labor is very much accounted for, as we know, as work that is essential to all of our lives. And that domestic labor also includes for the community's farming operations, member care, including child care, outreach, land and infrastructure maintenance. Both communities do, have certified organic farms and participate in seed growing and also doing trialing for Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. That isn't the only farming activities that happened out there. We do farm for produce to feed community members internally. And it's a really amazing thing to, if you are community dinner cook to, really, appreciate that the food that's you're preparing literally got harvested, from the fields that morning. Along with produce farming, Twin Oaks does have livestock currently, mainly cows and chickens. It maintains a dairy program where the folks working in that program make cheeses and yogurts for the community that are absolutely delicious. One thing, too, as Ira was talking about, there's a lot of collaboration between different communities. And the farm produce, also material goods and labor exchanges. There are systems between them. And that's another way that the egalitarian communities and also the local Louisa communities really, connect and participate in being in this broader community with each other. And yeah, Ira, I'm curious if there's anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to talk about as far as labor in the communities.
Oh, someone asked how many people we have in each
Oh,
community. Twin Oaks, Twin Oakers say usually there's about 100 people, about 80 adult members and about 20 children. Uh, we, I guess, are in the vanguard of that group that is not having as many children in the world as there were before. But we miss the little brats when there's not any of them there. And people talk about how to have more families
mhm.
interested in community, and we'll see how it goes moving it into the future. At Acorn, we have about 20 people, but uh, in the aftermath of the pandemic, it that number sort of went down for a while. Uh, but we work with local neighbors and friends from more isolated communities that come to work on seasonal projects at Acorn as well.
Yeah. And one thing to
Where are we?
and one thing to note too about talking about children, and I think one thing that's amazing about the labor structures of Acorn and Twin Oaks is, going back to the domestic work, and that is counted in your work quota. And with Twin Oaks, it's about 42 hours. So it's really mirrors, what we think of like the conventional standard work week out here. But it also, as I was mentioning too, it includes childcare. So if somebody is taking care and watching somebody else's kids, that is considered, rightfully so, a contribution to the, operating the community is recognized in the labor quota. But as another part of that too, if you are a parent at the community, you do get a allocated amount of hours a week to claim in your labor quota for supporting and taking care of your children. So that's something that I really loved about living out there, is recognizing all different spectrums of labor that are needed, to really support our own individual lives and, collectively living together. So the
Yeah.
next thing we'll talk about social challenges and recent changes, and I'll turn it over to you, Ira.
Uh, a community exists uh, in the larger US society, and we have uh, had challenges during the years uh, of from 2000 to 2003. It was really hard uh, to have an open community where you're allowing people that don't know to come when there was a pandemic going across the country. And that caused us to have some good things, to get closer knit with the people who were at our communities and in green communities, but it made us temporarily um, not able to grow. And so when the pandemic started to calm down, uh, the communities had to rebuild population because people, really wanted to take care of their family uh, of origin and their friends that they had, as well as the people who were in the community. And another thing that that happened at Twin Oaks was there was a wildfire that took the industrial part uh, of the community and burned the major warehouse to the ground and really caused tenants, which had been long-term business, to have to closed down. I mean, it wasn't just the fire because uh, imported hammocks had been getting cheaper and cheaper. And so it was something that we had been talking about doing, and that was difficult. Fortunately, at the same time, uh, the pandemic increased people's interest in gardening and seeds and stuff, so we could offer some mutual support in that way. Something that I've noticed in our communities uh, in recent years is how much of people's time do they want to spend in what is traditionally called work. And so there's a lot of discussion about quota uh, as we have it, and how to have more of people's time available for them to decide, and not to be decided in the annual trade-off game where we're looking at with the allocated 42 hours or 39 hours a week, what would we get done? But some people would prefer because to have it be 25 hours a week. And, maybe that's possible, but it challenges these things that we do uh, to um, overcome the way our society is sort of uh, inequitable in terms of opportunities. Like people from more privileged backgrounds get to travel uh, and have a safety net if uh, things just don't work out, with the plan that they had. Uh, and but more people come, with that expectation, and it's kind of hard to maintain all the things that we want uh, without working. Uh, and that has been uh, an interesting uh, thing. But there was a time when people expected to work 60 hours a week, and changes in how uh, things are done and what you need has allowed it. And so we, it always has been one of the things for coming to Twin Oaks and Acorn is even if you only spend a year, you have the opportunity to explore all kinds of work and get an entry level education. Or if you want to just dive right in, people come and they teach themselves to code and uh, they go out and do that kind of work if that's something that they want to do. Um, and it's making for an interesting time. One of the members at Twin Oaks started during the pandemic doing tutoring online for mostly math and science, and that turns out to be something they really like and are able to do for their a significant part of their contribution to the community, but in a way that is very flexible and not having to go to work at uh, the whim of a boss. So um, I really like that. And I like that if you're a maker and you like to make beautiful things, that there's room for you to write a play and get a crew together and entertain the community during the winter months, especially. So, yeah, we, um, the causes that we get fired up about change from year to year, but there's a significant number of people in our communities who are trying to figure out how um, sharing the freedom that we have from the lifestyle we have with people who are in a position to not feel as comfortable taking big risks can happen. That is a challenge of the hour.
Yeah. And I think just to quickly chime into something we didn't mention, I think is a really amazing part of the communities is when you become a member there, what you choose as far as your work goes. Is completely voluntary. So as Ira was mentioning, you don't have, a traditional boss telling you these are the 5 tasks you need to do, or the work areas you need to participate in. There is very much coordination within the work areas, but it's in a radically different feeling of like it is all very held very collaboratively. And even though there are leadership roles in the businesses in the communities, it is very much still emphasizing, having equitable voices in that decision making. And yeah, and being able to live at a place where you decide where your interest is and what you want to contribute your energy to is really something of an amazing experience to have. And it makes you see that it is possible, for us to be able to organize, our efforts in many different ways. So I'll go on to the next slide here. So yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about cooperative seed companies, seeing that, as we mentioned, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange is a big part of the community's businesses out there, and it is really cooperated, by both Twin Oaks and Acorn. Twin Oaks manages the seed racks part of the business, which deals with having seed racks in stores that, of course, sell the seed packs. And that's, where I worked. And also to what I was mentioning is how I got started with seeds and fell in love with seeds while I was at Southern Exposure. So I'll turn it over to Ira to talk about a few other cooperative seed companies that are close collaborators with Southern Exposure.
Yeah. Um, Fedco seeds have been our good cooperative friends since we took over the management of Southern Exposure. Working together, they, I mean, they came about uh, as a part of a consolidation and uh, of the remaining assets of a bigger co-op movement in your area, and that helping tendency and mutual aid continues on. Uh, the True Love Seed Company is one of the younger co-ops, and they started in Philadelphia. And one of the things that they do, because they are in the city uh, in a way that other people can't, is uh, work a lot with immigrants and have uh, a wonderful education program that allows young people to come in and learn from them. Uh, and it it's something, you know, at Southern Exposure, we do workshops, hands-on, and stuff at conferences, but we were never able to yet uh, also include in that cooperative structure large numbers of young people the way that True Love has done. And the Appalachian uh, Seed Co-op is interesting because it's a group of very young, I don't think any of them are, well, when they started, were over 30 uh, seed growers who took on working with each other to produce wholesale seeds and at the same time to do seed growing education for the people of Western North Carolina. And uh, True Love, I mean, Sister Seeds is a one woman amazing story of going through the uh, farmer training work, working with people at True Love Seed, and getting her traditional agricultural education all at the same time and working with other people in the movement to start telling the stories and bringing uh, varieties that were important in the African diaspora forward. Um, uh, yeah, so instead of thinking of how we can take a small and limited pie, these cooperative groups have said, why don't we just bust that shell out and make a bigger pie so that we all can have enough to feed our families and educate our children and use our labor to help each other uh, develop.
Thanks, Ira. And just to look at the time really quickly, I think, Ira, would you be okay if we skip a bit ahead so we can
Yeah.
make sure to have some time for discussion? And I think maybe some of the talks about some of the BIPOC cooperatives we could highlight in the discussion. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah,
Yes.
that would be great.
Right. But maybe before we wrap up, how about we talk a little bit more about Ujamaa because I know that's a project that's really near and dear to both of us, and I think has a really wonderful story about, wrapping up at least part of the formal presentation about, talking about how, our cooperative spaces really support each other. How does that
Mhm.
sound? Great. So
Well,
just for, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, while we're doing that, uh, I think it would be appropriate since you were one of the original three co-managers of uh, the Ujamaa Cooperative, uh, that you tell a little bit about the story. I
Thank
have
you.
only been their godmother, and
Which is
you
a very important thing to have as a godmother.
indeed.
Thank you, Ira. Yeah, and so a little bit about Ujamaa Cooperative Farming Alliance, and just to share, this is a picture from one of our very first convenings back in 2022. And this was a joyous convening because this was a convening that after a year of a lot of hard work, we ratified our membership structure. And that was the first significant decision that we made as a collective with our membership. And it was, extremely joyous occasion. Uh, Ujamaa Cooperative Farming Alliance got started in 2021. We are a BIPOC seed farming collective we're involved in a very diverse spread of seed work. And what we're focused on is supporting BIPOC growers of different scales and types to learn about sustainable seed growing and seed saving. And also, as Ira mentioned, there is part of our collective where we have a seed company that is focused on increasing access to culturally meaningful seeds. So, one thing that Ujamaa really recognized is, as many of the biases that exist in our world, that our seed access is not immune to them, and that there are many types of seeds and varieties of seeds that many BIPOC communities that are important to but that you really cannot find through very accessible means. So that's been at the core of Ujama's work is to increase access to those culturally meaningful seed varieties. But just to mention a little bit about the origin story, one of the founders of Ujamaa who really manifested the vision, Benita Deep, and when I met her through IRA back in 2021, and Benita is just an amazing person. She, during the pandemic, was working with another founding member, Nate Kleiman, with a project called Cooperative Gardens Commission. to provide free seeds to any community grower that needed seeds to grow food in their community gardens at home. And they really recognized that, again, talking about access to varieties, was a big issue. So when we tell the origin story of Ujamaa, it was very much born out of the radically different, changed landscape of life that we're living during the pandemic. And I was connected to Benita in the very early days in 2021 when the founding team was getting started. And one thing I love about the start of Ujamaa is there was a big virtual meeting held with starting members of Ujamaa and many different seed company representatives to hear about the work that Ujamaa was getting started and to be on that call and see the support of many of the seed companies, including the ones that Ira was talking about on the previous slide, was just incredible because I think we have this conception that even for seed companies, in the word company being mentioned in there, there is, it evokes, what we think of in, our traditional capitalist landscape of needing to be competitors with each other. And the type of seed work that we're involved in, Southern Exposure and Ujamaa, is very much the antithesis of that. And what we're here to do is, even though we have our own standalone seed companies, we're here to collaborate and support each other in realizing there is enough space for everybody and that we only get stronger by having more seed-based cooperatives, out there. So there was a lot of rallying support from the seed companies in the way of resources to help Ujamaa get started in 2021. And that's the initial call while I was at Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, where I got to first know about Ujamaa and then later meeting Benita in person. And as many people say, the rest is history. And I became a part of the founding team while I was also still at Southern Exposure Seed Exchange and went on, as Ira said, to be one of the first co-directors. So still to this day, there are many close connections that Ujamaa maintains with Southern Exposure in the communities. And I think it's just a really beautiful story of how within the intentional community culture, it's very much connected to cooperatives and really showing what we can do if we work together. So, curious before we wrap up, Ira, if you have anything else you'd like to mention about Ujamaa.
Um, that Ujamaa is growing and they're working to make value-added products and to and where they can't see how it works yet to do it mail order, giving people tools for better marketing those things in their local area as well. And we're going to have a couple of conferences this year. Uh, in March, Ujamaa is going to have its first cooperative farming conference, and it's going to be called Seeds and Culture, and it's going to be in Washington, D.C. So if you want to go on a trip when you just haven't quite yet begun to thaw out, check it out at Ujama's website. And we're going to have at Southern Exposure a conference. This is our second one, Roots and Resilience. And it's really about not just farming and community, but how Black people can get access to control of more land and be able to have places where people of color can just be close to the land, as well as making a living sum of them, but also supporting other Black people and other cooperatively minded people by buying local. Uh, and so, yeah, we're gonna have that handout so that you can, uh, the
Yes.
virtual handout, so that
Yep.
you can catch up with these folks when they're after this talk. And yeah.
Thank you. Yes, and we will have, as Megan mentioned, we'll send out a resource list that also includes some of the other organizations and some additional ones sent out after the presentation. But just want to say a big thank you to everybody to let us share our stories with intentional communities. And I just wanted to put the slide up for a moment with mine and Ira's email, and always happy for folks to reach out for chats or questions. So without further ado, I think I'll stop sharing. Yeah, and thank you so much again. And I think we'll take questions and have some chatting.
Thank you both so much for sharing. We had a challenge for you all because you are involved in so many incredible projects and such a wide scope of work to fit it all in. And I loved hearing a little taste of each of the things you shared. Um, and we have about 10 minutes, I would say, for questions. So this is a time to sort of try to get into some nitty-gritty, some details about any of the things you heard, any of the things you're curious about. And Lavender, we will definitely share out the contact information again. I can put them in the chat and I'll share them out separately in an email. But feel free to drop questions in the chat. You're welcome to use the reaction button on the bottom of the screen to raise your hand and I can call you in. You're also welcome to just unmute and ask a question. Um, and it looks like we have the first one that came in from Cheyenne. Can you speak more on models that currently exist related to people or organizations buying shares on a property, such as the Shannon Project?
Ira, would you like to talk more about Shannon Farms?
Yeah, Shannon Farms, which is about an hour from where Acorn is one of those land trusts where you can buy your land uh, and build your, well, you can have a long-term lease on your land and build your own home, which you can sell. But something that's really special about them is when you build a house, you determine how much it costs, and it's only a cost of living adjustment rather than these big real estate deal increases in prices that people get. And there are other, uh, even older communities like Silo in North Carolina. And in those communities, we're seeing a slow change as younger people. Uh, we were wondering if these communities were going to die out. But as younger people are starting to buy homes and make businesses again, uh, they are becoming uh, more vibrant. And there's that still the opportunity for young people coming in to share. And we didn't give the contact on that list for the uh, fellowship for intentional communities, but they have an online
Mhm.
uh, book that has all kinds of communities so that you can find something by your geography or by the type of community that you want to be in, whether rural or uh, uh, city oriented, are the new thing where people are buying land at the edge of a city that has possibly been a CSA and building a small community there and continuing to pay a farmer to farm for the people in the community and also be able to run a farming business of their own independently.
Yeah, and
Sounds
I
like you
think
got some of that action going up at Vermont already, I saw.
very much. Yeah, and I just dropped, if anybody's curious, we'll make sure this is the resources for what Ira was mentioning for the Foundation of Intentional Communities that has a lot of information and webinars. And I do believe too, correct me if I'm misremembering Ira, but I think they also have occasionally funding support for projects as well.
They do from time to time, and they and some of the land trust organizations are able to help individuals or small groups be able to get land in the part of a bigger land acquisition in an area.
Great. I collected some questions from folks as they registered, and one that came through that comes up a lot in this topic is best tips on how to do communal living and manage conflict and challenging interpersonal dynamics in such an individualistic society. And I think just to sort of expand on that, I think hearing y'all talk about
Mm.
the sort of incredible, beautiful things about an intentional community is kind of like one side of it. And then I think the question, as I'm sure you've been asked before, is sort of like, what has allowed these communities to last for so long and stay functioning? Because from my vantage point, I've also seen um, collective projects struggle
Mhm.
under the pressures of managing conflict. So
Yeah.
maybe it's a two-pronged question, but sort of like how do you manage conflict and interpersonal dynamics, especially when we're in this individualistic society? And how what are like sort of the elements of your communities that you think have allowed them to thrive for so long?
Ira, would it be okay with you? I could take the management part and talk about like the how do communities stay together for so long? Does that sound good to you?
Okay.
Um, yeah, so and this is one thing. Definitely, in any type of cooperative or collective space, this also came up in, very early in Ujama, is really, advice I would give too is with any type of collective project, one of the first things to do is to come up with a set of conflict resolution agreements. And, even if it's just a starting point too, with Twin Oaks and Acorn, we have a lot of different systems and structures depending on where conflict arises, whether that be social, interpersonal, or business of agreed upon, which it's all very, as we've been talking, done in collaborative manners, and it's not like a hierarchical manner of addressing things, but we have different sets of agreements, and this really goes into, how this resonates with our values. But one thing I always like to say is like the time to figure out how you want to navigate conflict as a roadmap is when things are going well in the beginning, and something that, I've seen other projects run into too is without like a firm foundation when conflict arises. I think we all know this from our own personal lives. You're in, a kind of a state of emergency, so really having a foundational structure is essential. And at Twin Oaks, again, it depends on what type of conflict it is, and we have a lot of different policies and really that are agreed upon, you know, um, social structures to help support that can range from having mediated conversations to if it is something that is like a point of contention about decisions in the overall community. There are broader community processes too to navigate, larger conflicts. Say if it's a, huge business decision where there are multiple different views on things, and that it is, impacting the broader community. There are also, again, structures on a community and group level that we have to help facilitate that navigation. And the last thing I'll mention on the note of conflict, I think too, and having, foundational sets of agreements and how to navigate that too, that I think has been important in my personal experience being on the process team. And that's at Twin Oaks that helps support facilitation through a lot of conflicts is also to remain flexible and open to changing those over time. And I know that was a source of active discussion when I was at Twin Oaks too, is, reassessing what really supports, community members through navigating conflicts. And I think for any space to thrive, that should be an ongoing conversation. So I'll turn it over to Ira for the next part.
Well, I think flexibility is the key to staying there a long time. But also encouraging lifelong learning.
Mhm.
So, when I joined, there was a construction project that was going on that was all women. And it was because uh, men came with just a lot more experience. And it's kind of hard to be a beginner and you're with the master carpenter. So setting up things that encourage more equality uh, being able to happen between members and practicing conflict resolution on small things makes a big difference when big things come along. Uh, and being willing to spend your time uh, either as an exchange or part of your money to have people who have more skills come and share those with you because everything that makes your community work well is a valuable contribution.
I think that's a
And
really great note to end on, Ira. Unless you had some last thought that was about to come out.
I was just saying, and expecting when you come there that there are going to be problems and
Mhm.
being happy to deal with them when they're little problems instead of waiting for them to fix themselves.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
No.
you put your process stuff on the same maintenance schedule as you're putting your roof.
Yeah. And I
That is a
think,
good gem of wisdom.
yeah, and I'll just echo and something that I really, of the million and one things that I've taken from my life in intentional community is really that practice, deepening what it really means to be in an ongoing learning, space. And want to echo that as, when I think of, my time in intentional communities, what is most important, and really uh, remaining connected together. It's very much what Ira, of course, said about, continuing to learn and, having that willingness to.
Thank you both so much for all that you've shared with us tonight. I'm going to encourage those who are still with us here for the last few minutes, would love to hear a little reflection back from you all. What is something that you're taking away with you as you move on from this experience. One thing I'm taking away from this learning experience tonight is I'd love to have each of you drop something in the chat. This is a time to collect what we've all learned together. Yes, let's all move to intentional communities. I love that, Alphonse. This is also a great time if any of you have resources in mind that you'd like to share with this group, please drop them in the chat and I will collect them up and package them to send out as a resource list. What else are you taking away? Be more intentional with practicing conflict resolution. Absolutely. Inspiration to be more intentional in relationships and especially in conflicts. Want to learn more about I see as intentional communities. I'm really taking away the way that childcare is valued in intentional communities. I think that there's a lot to be learned from in our bigger society about the way that y'all are valuing childcare in your spaces. Folks, keep your reflections coming. Rochelle, keep on living towards the dreams, however imperfectly they look or however scary it feels in a sea of individualism. Here, here. Jeff, so many ideas to consider for ICs. And I want to add that when we asked Alexis and Ira to join this series, one thought on my mind was while it would be so lovely for us all to move to intentional communities and all start intentional communities, one thing that I feel like is so valuable from hearing about their experiences, like what are the pieces that we can all take out into whatever project you are in. It might not be a full-on intentional community, but we've been talking a lot about sort of collective and cooperative structures and collective land holding. And there's a lot of elements of intentional community structure that I think are applicable in a variety of different iterations of that work. So thank you both again for sharing. Again, I want to encourage you all to join us at the NOFA Winter Conference if you can, coming up in February. We'll have talks on all sorts of topics, including land access. And then we'll be back together for this series in March with a really awesome project in New York where a large-scale dairy farm is transferring ownership to a collective of BIPOC farmers and stewards. So it's a really exciting project and really in its very new early stages. So I really strongly encourage you to come for that. And then we have this incredible project as well being featured in April out in Minnesota that has just sort of like layers and layers of collectivity and cooperation involved. So both are going to be super, super exciting and round out this series so well. I've thrown a link in the chat to our evaluation. I'm trying to speak and spell evaluation correctly at the same time. And I would love it if you all could take just 2 minutes to share your thoughts and your feedback on this session with us so we can keep improving it as we go. And I just want to offer thanks again to Alexis and Ira for being with us and to all of you here for spending your evening with us together. That's a wrap. I will end the recording now, and then if anyone wants to stay for the last few minutes, you're welcome to. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.